Hi everyone, I am back for another movie take, and the movie that I will be talking about is The Thomas Crown Affair from 1968, starring Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway. I'm going to do a comparison video between the 1999 Thomas Crown Affair and the 1968 Thomas Crown Affair. The 1999 Thomas Crown Affair was a lot more modern looking, modern suits, a lot more slick. The 1968 Thomas Crown Affair flick with Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen plays Thomas Crown as a little more of a smart aleck than anything else. Not as sophisticated, but someone that does wear suits and someone that can flirt, but not someone that Pierce Brosnan played him as, kind of slick and smooth. Steve McQueen played Thomas Crown as kind of calculating and wanting to get the job done rather than seduce people around him, like what Brosnan did. That is something that I've learned that watching both movies is that it also reflects how the times were different. So Pierce Brosnan, uh, Thomas Crown Affair flick was a lot more slick, a lot more dealing with technology, a lot more just like more like 90s social mores. And the Thomas Crown Affair from 1968 was a lot more slow, not as much technology, just a lot of payphones. And while the Thomas Crown Affair from 1999 used a lot of cell phones, even though cell phones were just beginning, a lot of people were already kind of using it. Faye Dunaway plays the shrink in the Pierce Brosnan flick, but she plays the love interest of Steve McQueen in 1968. She plays Vicki Anderson, an insurance investigator that, similar to Rene Russo, is assigned to the case of stealing art and kind of gets Steve McQueen at the end. But Steve McQueen plays Thomas Crown very slick, kind of like Bullet-like. And I've always thought of Steve McQueen as kind of like a cool anti-hero, kind of like a James Dean. But you know, I always wish someone like James Dean and Steve McQueen had lived longer lives and had longer careers. Who knows how they would have been like? I've always wondered that. But I must say that the 1968 flick was a lot of just very old-timey, very like old-fashioned police work when it comes to stealing art, and just very methodical and thought out. And the 1999 flick was just go, 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 go. But I also think both men, both Steve McQueen and Pierce Brosnan, had reflected their careers while playing this role. Pierce Brosnan, when he played Thomas Crown, was in the peak of his James Bond fame, and Steve McQueen I think just came off of Bullet in that time frame. What I found was that while the 1968 flick was kind of hippie oriented in a way because it was the late 60s, the 1999 flick was just quick. It just dealt with the internet. It dealt with just technology going fast, fast, fast. While one movie was a cold game of control, the other movie was just a simple game of seduction. That's just how I see it. And to be honest, I kind of liked Faye Dunaway's Vicki Anderson role better than Russo's Catherine Banning role. And that is because I found that Faye Dunaway, when she played Vicki Anderson, kind of brought that old school flair to finding out what Steve McQueen wanted, while Rene Russo was just wanting to bang Pierce Brosnan in the movie, and that's just my thought. And Rene Russo did say in later interviews that she felt that she was in her 40s and wanted to flaunt her sexual being. That's one takeaway that I found. The other takeaway is that while the Thomas Crown Affair from 1968 didn't use as much comedy as it did in 1999, it was a lot more serious for its time. Uh, than I have to say other movies were of that time period. So this was the late 60s, so Easy Rider and all those various movies came out where things were a lot more laid back. This didn't present any laid back uh, sentiments, but it did kind of reflect the anti-hero sentiment. Uh, you know, I think of movies like The Graduate with a young Dustin Hoffman. I kind of got that vibe watching the Thomas Crown Affair, because it was just like you could do what you want, but also at the same time, no one was using drugs. As an example, Pierce Brosnan kind of played Thomas Crown like James Bond, while Steve McQueen played Thomas Crown like a professional thief. And that's my take with these two movies. They're fun movies to watch, and I'll see you guys at the next review.